it's amazing. The pizza man is now leading Obama in the polls.
Kind of like the pizza man.
Pizza man,
I like pizza.
A lot of people like him. Well, the Republicans met in the Valley again last night for their latest debate, and much of that attention will be focused on the rising politician, Herman Cain.
Well, with Cain gaining support, more and more people are taking a closer look at his 999 economic plan. Here's Paul Strand with that story.
Herman Cain keeps grabbing headlines, like with the news that for the first time ever, a poll shows him beating President Obama in a matchup, 43 to 41%. One reason he's getting so much attention is his 999 plan. As he explains it, he's proposing America throw out all the old taxes.
We replace capital gains tax. We replace the payroll tax. We replace corporate income tax, replace personal income tax, and replace the death tax.
As well as throw out the IRS and its 10 million word tax code, replacing them with a
9% corporate business flat tax, 9% personal income flat tax, and a 9% national sales tax.
Many have praised Cain's radical redo.
I think we need to blow up the tax system completely and just start. It's not fixable.
The Wall Street Journal's Stephen Moore is uneasy with Cain's 9% national sales tax, but says the plan altogether is so good it
would be like steroids for an economy that is flat on its back right now. I think it's a huge job creator. I think you could literally create 1 million jobs a month if we had this plan in place.
David Keating at the influential Anti-Tax Club for Growth says,
you get rid of all the nonsense in the tax code, you make it simple, you get rid of all the waste spent in planning, tax planning and tax preparation, and you bring tax rates down enormously.
But the revolutionary 999 and Cain have also been taking fire from both left and right for days now. Economists leaning left say Cain's plan would cut taxes way back for the rich while hiking them substantially on the poor and middle class. One says you could only be for it if you believe that low and middle income households have it way too good, and they should give more of their income to those poor Americans making more than $500,000 a year. Another told the Wall Street Journal it would be the biggest tax shift from the wealthy to the middle class in the history of taxation, ever, anywhere. Moore scoffs at that.
This idea that creating a pro-growth tax system is going to be regressive is nonsense. The way to help low-income people is to give them good-paying jobs, and that's what this plan will do.
As for the Republican side, Cain's fellow presidential candidates are very critical of 999. Even Texas Governor Rick Perry's wife piles on.
When I hear 999, I want to call 911. Because it will raise the taxes.
Michelle Bachmann may have taken the cake, though, jokingly hinting the plan might even be satanic.
When you take the 999 plan and you turn it upside down, I think the devil's in the details.
Most of the criticism from conservatives is aimed at Cain's new 9% national sales tax and how it gives government a new revenue source to hike.
The temptation is always to raise that tax.
And Moore says he suggested to the Cain campaign they drop the controversial national sales tax.
And have a 9% payroll tax instead. Right now you're paying 15% payroll tax, so that would still be a tax reduction.
Leading anti-tax advocate Grover Norquist appreciates Cain's motives, but not his exact solution.
The specifics of the plan are very dangerous. At one point you want to cheer him on for diagnosing the problem correctly, cheer him on for saying we ought to move in that direction. But if this bill was being voted on tomorrow, I'd say no, don't do that.
Keating disagrees, saying Cain's plan gets rid of so many other taxes that could be hiked.
It's a silly criticism because the plan gets rid of taxes.
Still, Keating says Cain could rally Americans to pass a constitutional amendment allowing only the people to hike taxes.
Several states have that provision. It's very popular.
And Cain told CBN News' David Brody he believes the people won't let 999 become 101010 or something higher.
They will be in an uproar if Congress tries to raise it because they can't control their spending.
Cain also said he wants to place a cap on his 9% tax rates.
I'm going to ask the members of Congress to include a 2/3 majority vote of the Senate before they can touch the numbers.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
It must break Mitt Romney's heart after spending all that money and being like the candidate from Central Casting to wind this pizza executive is now leading in the polls.
But, you know, the very thing you said is, I think, one of the greatest appreciations that people have for Herman Cain is that he's not a standard politician.
That's right.
I think people are fed up with it. They're tired of the lines. They're tired of the party belly aching. I mean,
well, he's a very common sense guy, and he explained to us. He came in to speak several years ago, and he told how he turned Godfather's Pizza around. It was just real simple. I mean, the way they were processing their food, and he shifted around, and suddenly began to make money. He's a very common sense man, but he's showed a tremendous amount of aplomb, if I can use that term, in these details. He hasn't gotten flustered. He's just as calm as can be. And this plan has caught on in America, and suddenly he's better than, I mean, leading Obama in the polls. And
but don't you think people also like the simplicity of it?
Of course they do.
You know, 5,000-page manuals are turned out
there are
on
more
programs
pages in the
proposed.
federal tax code than they are in the Holy Bible. I mean, it's insane, the stuff that's in there. You can there's a man in Washington who was on the committee. I don't know if he's still there. He was a lawyer, and he was an accountant, and he couldn't do his own taxes, and he was in the committee that writes the cotton-picking bills. Wow. He didn't understand. There's so much complexity, so you have to turn it over to professionals. This is just, oh, God bless him. And the American people love it, and he's struck a chord. When he started out, it looked like, who's this little guy? He hadn't got a chance. Now he's leading the pack.
And he will forever be known for 999.
Oh, he will indeed. I mean, it's extraordinary. I mean, but he's a marketer, and it's a slogan, and it'll catch hold, and that's what people will vote for. I want to vote for simpler taxes. Vote Herman Cain. Well, we could do a lot worse. Well, we'll have a special report from CBN News on the Republican debate in Nevada on tomorrow's 700 Club. And I might say, if I could give advice to the Republicans, knock it off. You've had too many of these stupid debates. Enough already. Go run your campaign and get on with life. You've debated, you know, until people are exhausted, but yet these things draw big audiences.
And we say this, we hear the same thing every time. I mean, you're right. Get on with it. Go meet people, talk to them.
Yeah, well, I mean, this debate stuff, I mean, it used to be 3 or 4 major debates. I don't even know how many they've had now. They have one every couple of weeks, and they've got to stop. Well, Lee Webb has the rest of our top stories from the CBN Newsroom. Lee?
Pat, government spending is up nearly 5% so far this budget year, despite promises of budget cuts from politicians in Washington. Investors Business Daily gathered those figures. The paper points out that both the federal and state governments have been steadily increasing their spending over the last decade. State spending up 72% of the last 10 years, and Washington spending, get this, shot up by 93%. By comparison, the U.S. population has increased by only 10%. Pat, what's the answer?
Well, the answer is to stop spending. I mean, you figure, folks, the population has gone up 10% during this period of time. 10%. And so we've gone up 90-some% in federal spending, and they talk about drastic reductions in spending. This is nonsense. They should take a meat cleaver to that budget and really get after it. And that's what people are yearning for. Not just little things around the edges. They need to go at the core of this monster that has just continued to morph and grow and grow and grow until it crowds out everything else. 10% increase in population, that's how many more people they needed to serve. If it had gone up 10%, think where our budget, our government would be right now. Would be in the black, would be without all that debt. It'd be tremendous. A few years ago, Fidel Castro, in what looked like a master stroke, cleaned out his insane asylums, cleaned out his prisons, put them on boats, and sent them to America. And it was called a Muriel boat lift. And suddenly we're faced, trying to be humanitarian with all these awful people who were the refuse of Cuba. Well, the Israelis may have pulled that same trick on Hamas. They let go 1,000 murderers, rapists, thieves, killers, terrorists. And they said to the Hamas, we're going to give them all back to you. Give us one soldier. Interesting. Lee?
That story, Pat, Israeli soldier Gilad Shalit returned home today as a result of a controversial prisoner exchange. He spent the last 5 years in Hamas captivity. And Chris Mitchell has the story of his homecoming.
The first pictures of Gilad Shalit came from Egyptian television and were rebroadcast on Israeli TV. Just after 11 a.m. local time, Israel announced Shalit was in Israel's hands. and he was given an IDF uniform. Hamas transferred Shalit to Egypt on Tuesday morning, while nearly 500 Palestinian terrorists were being freed to the Gaza Strip, the West Bank, and elsewhere for exile. At the border, Egyptian television interviewed Shalit. Answering in Hebrew, he said he was very excited, hadn't seen people in a very long time, and missed his family. Just after 11 a.m. local time, Israel announced Shalit was in Israel's hands. After leaving Egypt, Shalit flew by helicopter here to Tel Naf Air Force Base. He met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, IDF Chief of Staff Benny Gantz, and for the first time in more than 5 years, was reunited with his parents, Noam and Aviva Shalit. It's a dream come true for the Shalit family. Israelis are glad to see their soldier return home, but it's a day of mixed emotions. Alan Bauer and his son were wounded in a suicide bombing in Jerusalem 9 years ago. A screw lodged in Bauer's arm, and a piece of shrapnel went through his son's brain.
Well, we're obviously very happy for Gilad's return home, but we feel it's a definite failure on the part of the Israeli government to allow a release of such an enormous number of terrorists. It's been shown that 60 to 80% have traditionally gone back to terror.
In total, more than 1,000 terrorists will be released in exchange for Shalit. Many of them were serving life sentences for some of the worst terror attacks in Israel's history. Many hope Shalit's release won't mark a new round of terror. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Tel Naf Air Force Base.
And Pat, back to you.
Well, it costs a lot of money to keep someone in prison. So you've got 1,000 people locked up in prison. Probably costs $10,000 a piece a year to house them. You've got to have guards and security and so forth. So they're going to turn them all loose, and Hamas has got to deal with them, so they've got to feed them and house them, and clothe them.
Well, you hope it's just Hamas and that the Israeli people aren't victims of that.
Well, you never know. They can come back in to try it again, but as I say, it's Fidel Castro sure pulled a switch on us. He emptied his prisons, gave them all to us. We had to worry about it. So maybe Hamas will get all these misfits. The Israelis might not come out as bad as you think. It would look like a terrible bargain to have one man come through and you give up 1,000 in exchange for him. But what it says is the Israelis value their people and value their soldiers, and they value them more than they value those terrorists. It's an interesting concept, and I think in the world's eyes, Israel stands up because of it.
The 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals will not rehear the case of the San Diego Cross at the center of a 22-year legal battle. The Mount Soledad Memorial Cross serves to honor veterans of the Korean War. A 3-member panel of the 9th Circuit Court had previously ruled the cross unconstitutional. Now the full court has voted 6-5 against the cross. The ACLU has fought to have the cross removed. They say it should not be on public land, but supporters of the cross say they will appeal the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The Christian film Courageous finished in the top 10 again at last weekend's box office. The movie came in at number 8 with $3.3 million. It's made more than $21 million in 3 weeks on a budget of just $2 million. The film is an action-packed drama. It tells the story of a police officer who excels at work but struggles to connect with his teenage son at home. The movie was produced by filmmakers at Sherwood Baptist Church in Albany, Georgia. They also made Fireproof and Facing the Giants. And you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com.